Um, Our guest is here, Miss Jane Dixon. She's our consultant from McKenna, so welcome, Jane.
Thank you. Excited to work with you all.
Um, Stand for a pledge of the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Does anybody have any changes to the agenda?
You guys want me to clear my phone?
None? Okay. Public comment? Do you have anything you'd like to?
Looking at the only public out there.
I'm a new resident here, probably one of your high taxpayers. You can hear me, right?
Yes, that's for the purpose up there.
We got Zoom going. Okay, I didn't know that. Anyway, I just moved here the end of May, and I was born here, but my dad was transferred when I was 13. I'm back. So anyway, I'm real interested in what's going on with the lake. I am on the lake on Kennedy Beach, and I'm just real interested. I didn't know I had a VRBO right next door to me when I bought the place. So I'm very interested in that, and I understand it's on your agenda tonight. So that's really why I'm here.
Okay.
I get your name, please.
Oh, my name is Teresa Korn. I'm at 159 Kennedy Trail. I signed in over here. You got all my info.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank
And so far, you guys are doing great. I had Gerrish Fire Department out there twice already.
Okay, good to hear. Thank you. Okay, any questions on the minutes? You have a motion to approve the minutes as printed for the July 10th, 2025 meeting?
So move.
I'll second. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same? Motion carries. Okay, that takes us right into current business, and we're gonna let Jane have the floor, and we'll start our process with the master plan. Everybody should have a packet that I kind of emailed it to you that Jane had sent up and stuff with different things. So I don't know if you probably want us to follow along at some level.
Yeah, and I have a brief presentation just to guide us along as well. And so thank you all, first of all. I'm really excited for this project and the process, and happy to kick it off with you. So just kind of go over some of the components. I know you are all familiar with the proposal, but get familiar with our team and what our approach is going to be. And then I also just want to hear from you what you want to get out of this and what the main focus areas should be. I did have a conversation with Chairman Barber a little bit to understand you've talked a bit about your goals and objectives and past plans. So I don't want to belabor it, but hearing your input will be important. So we can just go down to the next slide. I'll introduce our team, even though I'm here this evening. As I've already kind of introduced myself, but I'm Jane Dixon. I'm a principal planner with McKenna. I've been working with them for about 4.5 years, and before that was working directly in municipal government. So I've kind of seen it from both sides of the aisle, but Gerrish Township's a special place for me. Growing up here with a cottage, my grandparents being here, and so long history, and just was really passionate. Once I saw the RFP go out, I was like, all right, this one's mine, guys. I wanna handle this. So again, thank you. Just really happy to be here. And Also have a team that's supporting this project. Maya Baker is the project manager and going to be handling a lot of the drafting. Maya's done a lot of work in more rural communities and lakefront communities, so is familiar with some of those challenges. And then we have a support team for the mapping and some of the data analysis. And then we like our plans to be visually accessible, so we do have kind of a graphics team as well. We can go to the next slide and
Hey,
then
can,
just,
can you tell me like how long each of the people that you just had up there have been in there?
yeah, I can scroll back up. So my 3.5 years, Lauren Thayer has similarly been with the company about 3.5 years. Prior to that, she worked for a civil engineering firm out of Chicago. And I'm sorry, I'm not gonna be able to tell you how long she was there, but she's probably close to 10 years of experience. Maria is a recent addition to our team and just joined us in June, but previous to her role with us, she worked for a consultant in the Columbus area called Next Planning. And then Carrie has been with us for over 20 years.
Thank you.
So, yeah, we can scroll to the next. Just kind of what success means to us. We want to lay out any sort of, we want to anticipate any sort of change and make sure that we're utilizing resources appropriately as the township moves forward and kind of creating a vision for the future. I always say, even if everything's going really well, you still have to plan to stay the same if that's what you desire. So a vision for the future can always mean maintaining what you have, or it can mean changing. And obviously, we know in this context, protecting the natural environment is incredibly important. And that goes hand in hand with the quality of life. That is why people are here, right? So
Exactly.
that's our goals. And I'm happy to hear what your goals are for the process. And you can stop me at any time. We can keep it casual, but we can go to the next slide. And thank you for controlling it for me. Just generally, I know you all are probably more well versed in the master planning process than other planning commissions I've worked with, where sometimes it's completely new, but it sounds like you've at least revisited your document and have a pretty good understanding of what's laid out there. We just kind of identify that, it's going to inventory current community assets and resources. We're excited that the new ACS data will be coming out in December. So we do want to, American Community Survey will be our kind of statistical analysis, and we'll have the newest data available to us. So that will help identify any trends, as well as any public facility needs. I know you're talking about, yes.
Could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah.
What data that is?
Yeah, so it's basically the census data that they break down. So in between those 10 years where the census is done, we had in 2020, we don't want to have to wait till 2030. That's a big gap of time, especially when you're smack dab in the middle in 2025. So the American Community Survey is just a sample of the population rather than the entire population, which that's what the census is trying to achieve. So it usually averages over the last 3 years. They do have like 1 year data sets, which would just be for the previous year. And it's still highly reliable. The margin of error is a little bit higher than the census, but it is nice to have that benchmark. We'll use both the census and the American Community Survey, but in talks with the team, we're excited. December 11th will be the date that the data gets released. So knowing that hopefully this plan will last you another 10, 15, 20 years, utilizing the most up-to-date data is the goal.
So it sounds like our timing's good as far as
Yeah,
release of that information.
it's great. Yeah, exactly.
Get tested that because I filled out that form like 3 times in 5 years.
They just kept, they're like, yep, you're gonna keep getting it. So, any other questions on that component? Okay. And then just understanding, I know you're kind of going through a septic inspection process and looking at that, what kind of facility needs, where the community might need infrastructure and how we can approach that through the master plan. And we know that it's obviously also the basis for zoning, if there are going to be any necessary zoning changes. And hopefully we capture kind of a snapshot of what the community wants through the survey process as well. Do you want to continue? Thank you. And just keep scrolling right past that. So touched on this a little bit, but we will look at what the area-wide patterns are. So not solely just Gerrish Township, but more broadly the communities that surround, as well as Roscommon Township and the state. But zooming out a little bit can help us contextualize what might be happening elsewhere. And that's not just simply with the data, but also if another community is experiencing similar issues and they, whatever their approach has been, that's going to help just give us food for thought. The natural, historical, and cultural features, as I mentioned, it's the natural features here, especially that we'll make sure to catalog and kind of take an assessment of, as well as the existing land uses and infrastructure and any sort of businesses or what might be missing there. You want to keep scrolling? So as was highlighted in the proposal, the kind of community input portion will be a community survey, as well as the public hearings and the required 63-day comment period. So the state does require that we send a notice of intent to update the master plan to all the surrounding communities, any utility companies, the county. And so we'll take care of that. That's at the beginning of this process. And then the community survey will be notified through a postcard mailing to the property owners throughout the township. And we're working to see what other opportunities there might be in terms of inserts in some of your other publications and informational pieces. And then the comment period will come when we've drafted the document and this, body is happy with the level of completeness and is ready for that to be released to the public. At that point, we will also then send notification to all those same entities that we sent the notice of intention to plan. And after 63 days, we will hold a public hearing at this body and take any public comment on the plan as well. But that 63-day period is really meant to allow people to really review it. 2+ months should give folks enough time to dive in as needed and provide us written comment in that time frame.
Hey, Jane, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
So what I'm always concerned about is the timing of things for things up here, like especially the survey.
Right.
Because I thought what I read before, the survey was going to hit at a period of time when there's not a lot of people here. And maybe the hearing hits at a time when there's not a lot of people there. Is there any way to work through that somehow? Or is there anything different that you might know that nobody else has ever told me before?
I have thought, so I had that same thought. In terms of the survey, my hope is it's going to be imperfect, but to really send it to not necessarily the addresses here, but any sort of wherever the tax bills go, the primary residence. So hopefully we're hitting people at their primary residence. I know it's off season for this location. Again, it's not going to be perfect, but I do also want to time it so that we're before the holidays and we're not hitting a point where people are in transit or out of town. So I would be happy to hear if you have other ideas, but I do want to try and negate some of that off-season
Jane,
aspect.
when approximately would that, you think, on our current timeline?
Yeah.
Would it be in let's say, 1st of December?
We were anticipating either end of October, beginning of November.
I'm asking
Yeah.
that because we do our tax billings on December 1st. We put a newsletter in there for the complete township. That might be a good opportunity to put the survey in that packet.
That
And
would,
it would probably be cost efficient as well.
yeah, that would be great. And it could be like, you want multiple touch points with folks. So if the first notification gets lost, if we could do something where we send out a postcard towards the beginning of November and then they get another, either the survey or notification in with their tax bills, that would be ideal.
Well, are you also looking at an electronic?
Yes,
version?
we will
So
have an
you two
electronic
avenues
version.
To get to it.
Right.
I think that's a good idea about the tax bill going on. Yeah.
Well, we spend, or I say we, Mary Ann spends a lot of time putting that 2-page, newsletter twice a year together. It goes in the tax bill.
Right.
And we pay KCI a flat fee to do all of our tax billings. And all I have to do is give them the digital and they'll just put it in there.
Perfect.
Plus
So
they
it
can put a
doesn't-
second sheet in there too, right? Or in
They
addition.
don't, as long as it doesn't go over the postage,
Right.
thing, I don't think they care.
Yeah, it can be a front and back side and we can say mail to this address.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea. A lot of people pay attention to that tax.
That's an important one not to miss, right?
Exactly.
It's right now,
Yeah.
popular guy.
In terms of the public hearing, I actually think that we will be hitting a good time because it will be at the end of this process. So I think theoretically it will be next July or August that we'll be holding that. So
Yeah, that would be good.
that hopefully aligns nicely with your peak kind of population.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And then we want to lay out some goals and objectives. And I know your last plan had very thorough, thoughtful goals and objectives. So we're not starting from scratch, and provide that future land use plan, any updates to that, as well as a zoning plan if there are any necessary or desired changes. And then if you want to go to the next slide. One thing that I like to include in all of the plans I work on are a very clear table with any action items. Might not be a long table, but it's something that just really highlights what are the discrete tasks that are coming out of this plan, even if they're maintenance items. What are the things that the Planning Commission needs to be monitoring going forward? And something that's easily referenceable, one page, and that can kind of be your shortcut to the rest of the plan as well. Thank you. And I know we started to talk a little bit about the schedule. Obviously, we're kicking off now and kind of initially surveying strategic issues. We're going to go through and do that quantitative analysis with the data October through December. And then, as I mentioned, that public kind of participation with the community survey, we slated for somewhere in October through December, but I think in January. So that will be perfect if we can get it in the tax bills and hopefully through January have a robust return rate on those surveys. And then we'll be working on the future land use and implementation after we've heard from the public participation. I usually use that survey as a good basis for any recommendations. We don't want to get too far into the drafting process before having that input. So an initial complete draft would be drafted in March and April, and then presented to this commission in May, and then we would go 2 months out from that for the public hearing. So your July meeting, most likely. I know you haven't set your dates for the 2026 meetings, but when you do, we will be sure to be in attendance, at least virtually, for the January and March meeting. We will be back in person in May. And as needed, we can attend the November meeting as well. And then Tom and I have kind of set up just check-ins so that he's also aware of what's going on a monthly basis.
Yeah, we could schedule special meetings in between these. It's
Okay, great.
it's an option if
Yeah, as
we feel or you feel it's necessary.
and I'm happy to attend those, and we can, as the project progresses, we can adjust that as needed. Are there any concerns about this kind of current cadence? Okay.
No, it looks like it flows, as well as it can be done, meeting all the criteria that the state imposes on us and so forth.
I think you're normal, because I'm still a newbie, but you normally would meet every other month, but you're probably gonna end up changing that. To do this.
No, not necessarily, but I'm saying we could, as Jane needs or we need to. We think we need to meet in between the monthly schedule, the bi-monthly thing. We could.
Yeah, we used to meet monthly and then we kind of backed it off. Let's do it every other month with the opening of that odd month is the one we had scheduled at special meetings at.
Okay.
And, see, last year we've had several that, at the different events. So there may be some scheduled without you.
Right.
And that you may want to join in.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, a site plan could come in and, all that stuff that has to be acted on in a more timely manner than bi-monthly. So
Which seems to happen.
this is the quietest it's been in a long time.
Enjoy it while it lasts, right?
Exactly.
And when you go through your, all of this, you deal with the schools too, right?
Yes.
Because the schools have changed a lot.
Yeah. I noticed that the last plan, it was the Gerrish area school district, right? And so I think it's now the Roscommon area schools, correct? And
Correct.
yeah.
And we used to have like 1,800 students. Now we're down to like 800.
Yeah.
So there's been huge changes, so.
That's I think, and huge implications too, without having that many permanent residents and families, right? So just that support of the local economy.
Well, there's been another school that opened up,
Okay.
so they've taken a lot of our students.
Is it a private school or is it a
It's a charter school.
charter school?
Charlton Hest.
Okay. Is that out of Roscommon or is that?
They're in Roscommon
Okay.
still.
More towards Lake St. Helen.
Okay.
But they're small.
They're the same size as we are now.
Are they really?
Yes.
Wow.
I was thinking like 20.
Mike's on the school board there, and here's.
Roscommon School.
Yeah. That's
Well, one of our biggest demographics is the aging population. The average age of county or township residents and county is over 50, and it seems to be increasing. So, which makes sense,
mhm.
but at the same time, it's detrimental to the schools a little bit and other factors too.
I think there was a stat that was the largest, the oldest
We are.
per capita.
And Roscommon is, yeah.
Yeah.
In the state.
Wow.
Really?
We have the oldest capita per capita out of any other county in the state of Michigan, Roscommon by far.
Really?
Yeah, the transit authority, they follow that. As they, bus all the folks around and
But it was interesting, the village, Roscommon Village, instigated a study where housing was the main purpose of it. And it morphed into a county-wide study. And the analysis, he was shocked that Roscommon County actually grew population when the counties surrounding us lost population.
Hmm.
But the growth was mainly in the older.
Retirees from.
All the surrounding old people moved here.
Well, we're attracting.
Yeah.
yes,
But
we
that
are.
does something to the quality of life. I mean, older, you have more money, you're retired, what have you, and you're going to be kind of choosy where you're going to plant yourself. So
Mhm.
And that's,
So I think it speaks well of the county in that context, but at the same time, it's not necessarily a great statistic.
so
for long-term.
look at some of the zoning board appeal stuff and with the new appeals coming in for wanting to do stuff, and as people come on from downstate that had stuff, okay, we got a summer place, we need to make it year round.
Yeah. Do you see ZBA cases for, I mean, I imagine all sorts of things, but specifically thinking about the older population, are there accessibility? Is that something that, people are trying to retrofit things to really be able to continue to live here into their 90s and as they age? Or is it primarily just like lot size issues and setback issues?
It's more of that.
Okay.
I'm on some of the county boards for the economic development and the Brownsville Redevelopment Authority and as well as the zoning board. So I haven't seen, they're coming up here, but I haven't seen any efforts like for the 80, 90-year-old people that, I've got neighbors that are like that, and everyone, they start dying and here there's no, Uber taxi stuff. There's a county, transportation bus, but you got to make arrangements ahead of time. And, but that's something that lacks, and it's just one, we're a half hour, 15 minutes to a half hour out from, the land of the people, as I call it, in any direction. But, so are you in the big metropolitan areas? I lived in DC where, you're a mile and a half down the road, you're half an hour out from the store in the weekend.
Right.
But if there's problems with weather vehicles or other issues, it's, 30-minute distance is a lot different from a car to having to ride a bike or walk that way.
Mhm. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, thank you for that context. And I think that's exactly your role, right? I just need as much input and context as possible, and your careful consideration of the draft as we move forward, of the analysis, and making sure that folks know about the survey, know about the draft plan when we do release it, and giving us that feedback is essential. If you want to scroll to the. And that, as I already talked about, the planning commission will make the recommendation to distribute the draft master plan for 60 days. It will be your duty to review what I think the comments we received during that period of time, and then hold the public hearing and recommend to the township board and adopt the master plan. Now that's a matter of preference. That's usually what I default to. The state does allow the planning commission to be the sole adoptee of the plan. I don't know if you have a preference. I like to have more buy-in than not. So I've built in an adoption with the township board, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I think the board's intending to,
Okay, great.
yeah.
Yeah, like for the public comments and all the stuff received, would you be compiling them like into a spreadsheet?
Yes,
Or so? Okay.
you will see a spreadsheet, and some of the things will go ahead and if it's a small, typographical error, things like that, we'll go ahead and change and note this has already been changed. But if it's more contextual or changes the plan's meaning in any way, we will just document that and discuss with this body. Okay, well, that's the end of me kind of droning on about the process. In terms of kind of our thoughts after looking at the goals and objectives, my conversation with Chairman Barber, I think the goals and objectives of the plan, previous plan were very well thought out. And it sounds like you've maybe had similar conversations. I think there's still a room for updating. It's been, 15 years. And so it's not without consideration to reflect the current state of affairs. But I know that we're looking at some of the potential priorities beyond what was kind of mentioned, or building upon what was mentioned in the 2010 plan, and the just growth management as people come in and start building larger and larger homes, and what does that mean in terms of land use planning and the lakefront development challenges? If there are infrastructure, utility capacity issues, as well as supporting, it's always a challenge here, I think, a little bit, the commercial segment. And spent a lot of time thinking about that, and I'm gonna spend a lot more time thinking about it, but I think that's also an aspect to dive into. So I would love to hear what your priorities are, what your thoughts are on the previous plans, goals, and objectives. However, you've kind of framed it for yourself. What do you want us to investigate, and what do you want to get out of this plan? What would a successful plan at the end of this process?
Were you involved with this before?
Well, I could tell you mine.
That's what I want. I'm glad you can jump in.
But I've only been on this board for 6 months or so. I agree with Tom. I think that the plan, the topics within the plan are probably the same ones. The intricacies of each of those topics has changed, so that the dynamics are different. But the thing that's really noticeable when you look at the plan we have right now, as it's written, it was originally written, I don't know how many years ago, but it's been updated, but the demographics and the information that support it are way old and probably out of touch because it was based on a growth pattern that they anticipated that did not happen, not to the extent that we have, and definitely not in the same directions that was expected. And so we need to think about where they were at and where we're at, and then where do we think we're going, or where do we want to go from here? And the lake is a big issue. Currently we're working on, the county's battling over this special assessment district for the dam in the lake levels. And then we've got a sewer project that didn't go through. And the Gerrish Township has got the Health of Higgins Lake initiative, which I think is getting some traction now, but it's probably going to be around for a while. And what the results are of that is still yet to be determined. But in the short term, I expect that there's probably going to be, this board's going to be tasked with a septic ordinance. Ideally, probably a sewer project someday, but I don't know to what extent and when. And I don't know if I have mentioned short-term rentals, but that's a hot topic right now with the township, and I think all throughout the country. So the dynamics changed, but I think the topics are very similar. I don't think if you just took the general topics, I don't think you'd come up with new ones.
No.
I think you'd find that they're pretty similar.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that.
So Jim's saying is we expect you to come up with solutions to all these.
We will try our best, right? That's so at least pathway.
What do you see? Are there certain things in like lake communities like ours that are similar in other areas, or what do you see as being something that you've looked through our master plan already? I'm assuming. What do you see as anything that jumps out at you that either has to do with the lake that needs to be better defined, or is just now different and not included there?
I think lakefront communities all experience similar development pressures in terms of both the short-term rental, which is more recent in that. I mean, we worked in Saugatuck and did a huge study for them on short-term rentals and created an ordinance. And that really changes the dynamic of a community. It changes the character. So that's been a really big topic of late. But more broadly, the development pressures of, if you're on the lake, you want to oftentimes squeeze every ounce out of your lot. And I work in West Bloomfield, which is a very different context, but there's a lot of lakes, and I've spent a lot of time just looking at ZBA cases and what decks, it's not even, just the house, right? It's the decks, it's the jacuzzi, it's all of the gazebo, it's all, it's landscaping, retaining walls, all of those things, and how those affect the health of the lake, how they're developed so that the water flow, because you're so close to, this environmental feature. I spend a lot of time looking at grading. I mean, those are just the things that come with lakefront development in general. And so managing that, I think, can be especially challenging regardless of where you are, if you are a lakefront community. Um, and then if you're a seasonal lakefront community, how do you sustain an economy that's not beyond just your summer residents? And that is also a really big challenge. So, yes, I do think there are themes that kind of branch across communities. And then there's always the uniqueness of each one, but those are some broad categories.
Thank you.
I've got a few.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Jim mentioned the Health of Higgins Lake, which is a new initiative. And I'm not sure how familiar you are with that or not. They've got numerous subcommittees with various things.
Okay.
Sewer septic being, one of them, finance being another, but environmental stuff. And so I'm alluding here is this, there's a science aspect that Brad, I believe you're the chair of that,
Correct.
co-chair. And I've been involved when I moved up here 15 years ago, since a while back, on several different, science efforts. So we're going to kind of track them with the lake monitoring. And then from that experience, it's just a bullet that could be one of those things that you kind of talk about, or that the lake has garnered international attention now because of there's a couple spots. They basically take measurements of the visibility and the depth using the same Secchi dish since 1970, roughly. And they take the nitrogen content, oxygen content, and some of the other stuff. So because of that, the detailed records over the last 50, 60 years, and some of the bias that's eliminated by some of the same equipment in the same spots, married up with the satellite photos each year, that's a point of interest. So there's an international interest now because of that. Then you have the other water quality kind of stuff ongoing. The other thing is there was a grant that was finally obtained by Michigan State. I forgot the professor's name, but basically they got the grant several years ago and have confirmed some deltas from the glaciers. And they found here that there were two glaciers that came down, one from the northwest over Minnesota, and the other one came down from over New York down here. So the first one came down, covered the lake. However, the Higgins and Houghton area were basically open, and they were essentially here before in some kind of fashion. But it was the first time they've ever confirmed that there was actually green vegetation surrounded 360 degrees, in a glacier. Then the next one came over top of it. And so that's unique to some stuff. So, and they've identified some things from the studies they started a couple of years ago. They're going to be studied for, decades probably afterwards. So there's some important stuff here from a scientific standpoint from the lake itself that we have available. And then that's it. Brad's chairing up the science committee. I'm not any part of that. But they have people that are going to be looking over those kind of things and trying to bring them together. You mentioned there are some of the changes and stuff on here. One of the things, the lake access, there's so many people here now. The South State Park has doubled in size from 200 to 400. And you go out there in July 4th weekend and you can walk from boat to boat, probably a couple hundred yards by 50 yards or so, not touch the water. And there's a septic problem in that alone without having anything. So you've got a lot of places now with people coming up, and it's with the two state parks. It's been recognized now a couple years ago by the Free Press is on a survey is the most favored lake or best lake in the state, even over Torch Lake and stuff. But, that brings in more tourism and more interest as a result of that, because people want to go, hey, where do you go for that stuff? So those are things that are good, but they're also have a negative side thing to that. You've seen, you mentioned some of the houses, landscaping and all that stuff. I see a lot of trees and stuff are cutting down. You're starting to see stuff in the shorelines when you look across the lake. You know, that was one of the beauties of the lake initially, is that you had trees and the cottages behind them. Now you're getting clear cut areas, some due to storms, some due to tree oak wilt and other things like that, disease, but there's a lot just being clear cut for the sake of, you know, I want a better view and not taking into account the people across the lake and what some of the things that makes the lake unique. And those are things that are kind of talked about a little bit, thinking there. The same thing with the new people that come in with the bigger houses, they're squeezing them into lots. And instead of going from 3 sections of dock, you've got 15 to 20 sections, you know, with the tri-hull and a, you know, handful of other boats on top of that. You know, that again causes more access too. That's an issue, that how do you manage that? And um, see, there's several efforts right now that are ongoing with potential developments from the commercial side as far as renewable energy sources. You've got the battery factories, the data centers, potential solar farms, and then wind farms. And there's a new state directive out there, and I forgot what we even called it or talked about it, but essentially it's, you can't prevent some of that stuff from coming in, but they can help you write the ordinance to kind of curtail to that area. Do we have some areas that potentially could be used for that? Probably with the size and scope, maybe a factory or something like that. But anyways, those are things that are emerging that have unintended consequences later on that could affect the communities. And you would think, no, we don't have it. And next thing you know, just like Big Rapids and that Goshen EV plant down there, it could be forced upon. So there's concerns about that. And the master plans, I know, are key to, if you have stuff stated in there, which direction it's going for, can be very helpful.
Will you, going through our goals and objectives right now, with those headings, you know, you got growth management, economic development, and public services, would you pretty much keep those general titles
Yeah, I
and
think,
add to it if
yeah,
necessary?
I think I think their general categories are appropriate. And I think I included, and if I didn't, I apologize, a draft table of contents as well, where we would maintain the and if I didn't get attached to the email, that's my apologies, but we would maintain largely the same structure in terms of the general categories. And again, I think that, you know, we could look into wind, solar, battery, all of the renewable energy aspects under that utility infrastructure type topic.
Subcategory.
Yes, exactly.
To the so basically the general outline we have is what we'll probably keep and update as much as necessary, and then add subcategories like what Mike's referring to from there.
Yes.
As
Unless you want to see something different, I think it's great. You know, it doesn't necessarily need to be redone, but I'm happy to
No, I think a lot of those things fit in. I mean,
Yeah.
just they've
Is there
got good.
anything that pops out at you, having gone through it, that's not there?
I think some of to your point about specifically wind, I can see becoming potential concern. Not that there's a huge amount of wind, but and it's not that you're so flat. It's not the first
Right.
place that someone's probably going to want to
My
develop.
understanding on that from some backgrounds that you actually need for it to be viable. They prefer you to have like 15 knots of sustained wind averaged over the year.
Yeah.
On a daily basis. So, you know, we don't fit into that category.
Yeah.
We don't want that here
Yeah.
either.
And
That's where
and-
that's where to your point.
and any of that stuff like the
Upgrades.
solar, the solar farms. I mean, at least my personal opinion is you don't want those things, the EV, you know, the battery stuff, you got, you know, environmental leakage and all that kind of stuff, let alone and so there's a lot there. One of the changes I've seen, just as a personal thing too, over the last 20 or so years is, and especially the last 10 years, the change from, there's a lot of places that were set up in particular the west side, like you had businesses, small restaurants on the west side of Higgins Lake. You had, you know, the little mini city with the bank and the hardware store and the food mart and all that. And now a lot of those things have slowly been bought up or abandoned and changed and repurposed, and then storage units is all said, and we did a change of the ordinance here. We, recommended to the board, and so there's a large number of storage units has been approved to come in, whether or not, and I don't see personally that that's gonna, I think a lot of the businesses from those, they may fill up, but I don't see it filling up from use of Gerrish Township. I see it for primarily being a halfway point for other places like Torch Lake or Traverse City or Petoskey or potentially. That's yet to be determined, but there's been a huge storage unit around the whole county, actually, and several, Markey Township and the others put moratoriums on that. So that kind of, the thing that I think basically people like to see is how can you get businesses but still maintain the character, maintain the woods, maintain the outdoorsy kind of stuff. That can be done, but how do you do that? And yeah, that's it. Sorry.
Jane, I was impressed with just that preliminary list you have there, because I've been giving this some thought, and that's pretty much what I have too. I have the exact same points that Mike has, is that I see our businesses in the area really, we worded it well, is that it's being taken over by private owners, have it for their own storage, or it's not business friendly. It's not commercial friendly area. Parking is terrible in some of the areas for people to get in and out. And I think we could do a lot to try to make those business areas more, I don't know, just make it easier for people to have a business there.
Right. And I don't know if you're a part of that. I think about a year and a half or 2 years ago, there was an effort. I didn't see him come before here, but at the board level, where people were talking about what was a kind of like little mini cities, kind of like Gaylord, or you get the architecture of the houses would be kind of unique
theme.
Yeah, and what's the Frankenmuth?
Little Pine.
Yeah, there was some kind of effort that they wanted to designate maybe certain zones, or maybe one or two, a couple around the lake, that you could have, whether businesses or some, that they would be built to certain standards. And I don't think it went anywhere, but I think you may see that stuff in the surveys may reappear, that, there's some interest people have in that.
And the other thing that Mike raised was the tree cutting, and that the nature and character of the lake has changed over the last few decades. I mean, you used to look across the lake and you didn't see homes. Now you see almost all the homes that have clear cut so much. And I think a green belting concept around here would make a lot of sense, and some along those lines to really protect the lake, from from recommendations and ordinances that they could be utilized. One thing that we also we're dealing with, and could be where the potential septic ordinance comes in, is not only do we have pressure from bigger houses going on existing lots, we have some areas around the township and all around the lake that are very densely populated. We know house on top of house on top of house. And, I know one of the things the septic committee is looking at is they can't even functionally have the state requirement of 50 feet from the septic system and wells. And what do we do about stuff like so? Some planning for those densely populated areas, I think we need to look at. They're an issue.
And the home values too. They just skyrocketed.
Yeah.
Like everywhere, but.
Yeah, to the point where people have been for generations, all of a sudden they go up, and then now they can't do the property taxes, and that's it. So you're losing a lot of the old school.
All the short-term rentals, we have teachers who don't want to move here because they can't find a house anymore.
There is a housing issues already.
There is right now. And
affordable housing.
Exactly. So.
The last thing I'll say, Mike had mentioned that with this Health of Higgins Lake there, one of the things we're working at and we're really close to having is a repository that we never had before of all the studies and reports that have ever been done about Higgins Lake quality, and having on one platform and searchable for the community. So, I mean, we're close to getting that off the ground. So that's just something to be aware of, that when you're doing your plan, that we're going to have this available.
Oh, great. If you don't get it off the ground before, we start, just send them my way.
Yeah,
We'll sort through 'em.
Yeah.
The One of the things I see, and I came up here with my background in the military and research and some other unique things, is now AI is coming up and really accelerating the stuff, and then as well as the COVID accelerating the Zoom capabilities for interactions. But there's a lot of people, I believe, and resources that retire with a lot of great background, teachers, PhDs, researchers, and everything. And now with that, with I see that as an opportunity where you could have places what Colorado, Seattle, San Francisco kind of used to be, where people that like the outdoors and environmental, conservation kind of things can still have that, and they can still be high tech, but they don't have to have factories, and they can work remotely, and they can do that from places like this. And those people that retire, they retire 50, 60, whatever. A lot of those people, they can work for another 20, 30 years on things they'd like to do and are fully capable of doing. And the trick is, how do you manage that and do that? But that's something I see opportunities of, something where you can get high tech people can come in and still maintain the community effort. And at the same time, there is efforts from to establish KI Sawyer up in the UP, and then Wurtsmith Air Force Base that had closed in Saginaw area. They used to be B-52 bases for the things. Anyways, they're going to be used for a lot of satellite, potential hypersonic aircraft bases. And then they're trying to make this place and the space stuff up here. And I think they've partly been designated, as a alternate to like Cape Canaveral in a way for doing some space launches with a lot of the small satellites, because they're talking, 20, 30,000 satellites per constellation, for like Amazon alone, or Musk's for his Skynet. So those are opportunities that people could come, and all of a sudden you could get the whole area blown up with people. I mean, exploded in population kind of a thing, with a lot of high tech. That can be good, but they can also be, not managed. It can get out of hand, and definitely change the current nature of the stuff here. And there are a couple efforts from the county side. They're doing right now with this. This is one project with the fish. They're basically getting these large carved fish to hang up, different ones for the different areas, and with some grant money. And for those, anyways, they've established 3, and they're trying to go around the different townships to get,
Is it
buy-in.
like a public art installation?
It's basically, it's putting up like at a park or something. This fish that's about as big as a table is hand carved, like a bass or a trout, and somebody's done that, and they're trying to make a big thing of it. But there's more things on there you could imagine with some parks or things, but they're trying to do that around the county, and the Economic Development Corporate Committee and is working with several efforts. For, with the Tourism Bureau and the chambers and that kind of stuff, to try and help, do some economic growth. But the difficulty, or the thing I always caution people for, is, people always say they want growth, but do you really want it, and how big do you want it? And because that can come back to bite you. And then, the big people that come in when nothing's set up first can, basically take control and set the precedence for all the ordinances that don't exist right now.
Absolutely. I read through the master plan, but I will admit I haven't read through the entire zoning ordinance. But one of the things that, Brad, you mentioned about the tree preservation, especially along the lake frontage, does the zoning ordinance have like an environmental feature setback from the lake in any way, where you've got I'm throwing out a number, 25-foot buffer, where you're not allowed to make any sort of alteration to that section? Okay. That's like that's another lakefront community type theme that I've seen throughout.
Yeah, I would say our zoning is pretty solid when it comes to lakefront stuff. I mean, in creating the zoning ordinance, we ended up with different districts based on density more than anything. You can't create a setback that they can't live with. It just doesn't exist.
Right.
We're too late. So in my thought is, the zoning's pretty good around there. I don't think you could change a whole lot as far as setbacks and so forth. I mean, you always could, but
would you enter, I mean, do you have an interest in looking at the zoning and, I mean, we wouldn't be doing an update, but as part of the recommendation for the zoning plan, there can be some success of a 10-foot buffer, just creating something where no one should really be building 10 feet from the, shoreline, just from erosion perspective.
They have, the state already have I mean, am I?
Jason, you probably know more about this.
No.
We do have taking place shoreline stabilization. From the high water mark upland 10 feet, you're not allowed up to the still not.
Does that include removal of trees and installation of retaining walls and all of that?
The only thing you can do is if you have an erosion problem, you can do a riprap with an eagle permit and a permit from the township.
Thank you.
There have been efforts from, I think, the conservation, the Higgins Lake Foundation, have had several forums this summer. I get them mixed up, but talking about the green belt and some things you can do. So there's been encouragement for some of these other private forums, the property owners, the Higgins Lake Conservancy and the Higgins Lake Foundation and Greg's been a key part of those, some of those on there. So there's been encouragement and an outreach program to try and deal with it. That's the extent.
Okay.
There's a lot of things you probably already know. I mean, there's a lot of things that have just been here forever.
Yeah.
You know, there's houses that are built right on the side of the lake.
Yeah.
You know, stuff like that. So, one of my questions was, I know some of the things that were written in the documents that I read had to do with, possibly changing the zoning ordinance as well. I'm not sure how the changeover would be. I kind of agree with Tom. I don't think there's a lot of change necessary, but there are probably some things that need to be added. But I think we have to be careful about how we change the zoning, because there's reasons why if we add something to some area, that steps on another area, so to speak. So that worried me a little bit. I don't think there's a lot of that to do. There's probably some updated things that are necessary to consider in there, but it might be difficult to figure out how to wedge them in.
But you could do make special bullets of quote encouragement of that stuff in the master plan. Say this is the general, that allude to some of those things that can't be.
I think
Yeah.
the key point here is keep an open mind as we go through the plan. Something might raise its head enough and you notice that, hey, maybe we could make a alteration, or this is something we should consider. So
Yeah. And
that's
this,
really what you're alluding to.
yeah, this is, the master plan is the paintbrush of, broad strokes, right? And it's not, changing the zoning. It is obviously the basis of if you wanted to change zoning going forward. I don't imagine any sort of significant changes in districts or changing what the intent of those districts are, but small things. I asked about the kind of environmental feature setback, if we're looking at green belts and opportunities, but again, those would simply be things to consider, after we're done with this process, if you wanted to make those updates. But all of that will be vetted through you before it even lands on a page. So
Yeah, if you have ideas with your background with dealing with lakes, we would welcome any ideas you have. Well, feel free to throw things out to Tom, you talk to him, whatever, or us,
absolutely. Yeah.
see something that you guys might want to consider, or other police are doing, people are doing this.
Yeah.
Appreciate your help, so.
No, and I appreciate that. And I want this sounding board. So if you say, that's really not for us, and, that's great too. Right.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah. One thing here that I've seen is like recreational facilities. We've got the tennis courts and now the pickleball is really taken off, but there's no swim center and stuff, or some, major things like that close by. But it's difficult because the lake, is so big. So even if you're on the other side of the lake, it's still a, 15, 20 mile, trip to get there halfway around and back. And I think that was discussed in recreation plans in the past is
I don't know that current master plan even has it, because I don't know how long the marina's only been here, about 10 years.
Yeah. I don't think it's mentioned.
Marinas, we have two two parks owned by the township on the lake,
Right.
the marina being a major investment
Yeah, and they used
by the
to,
township.
they used to do ice skating in the marina. It was just an open thing and you could go in, and that was, geez, about 8, 9 years ago, I think, is when they stopped doing that.
You know what I find interesting sitting here is, if I didn't know Gerrish Township, if I'd never been here, and I just listened to us talk for the last hour, I think we were talking about Higgins Lake.
Right.
And I'm not saying it crass, it expounds how important that lake
Mhm.
is to this township, because the conversation here has been primarily the lake.
Right.
You know, you touched on commercial, which we really don't have a lot, and but the lake seems to be the top, not much else.
If the lake wasn't here, things would be a lot different.
Oh, we probably all have farmers hats on.
Most of our commercial is dealing with the lake though.
Right.
All the meetings that we have here.
Right. But you touched about the marina. I mean, could that be utilized more effectively for other
And
things
that-
other than just a boat launch or boat?
That top, that right there,
Mhm.
the supervisor and I are looking at some long-term infrastructure changes to be, not during my tenure, but at least started.
Yeah, I mean, if you had like a big.
It's a great asset that we could utilize for a lot of things, not
Yeah.
just boat launch or
Yeah, yeah.
boat storage and all that.
Yeah, I mean, if you had in some of the stuff, if you had it, you have something on the west side, something on the east side, but that's something where if you could get like a recreational, indoor basketball courts or some other things that could be used for multiple different types of things inside, even a bigger, ability to add it on. You have some event centers around here, Houghton Lake and some other areas, and Kalkaska, I think, doesn't they have like a big, huge hockey
Coliseum,
rink and
yeah.
the
Yeah.
so, and those are things that if you get more people in, they're retired or some of the more professional folks that are used to that in the urban areas and stuff, those are things people would like to see. I mean, I used to swim daily, for you do it in the summer now up here, and I'm doing it in the water when most people aren't. And
Well, I've said it quite a few times. My opinion is we are a bedroom community. We don't have really commercial other than commercial that is a service industry serving the population that's here. So recreation, any opportunities we can give them there, just encourage them to stay here and raise a family and so forth.
but you may
So I don't think we'll ever attract a major commercial project. We could.
But that's not what I was, when I was talking about, I was just talking about making it more business friendly for the small businesses.
Here's Tom and I've served, I don't know how long you've been at DDA, but it's a long time. And I've been on it since it started in Roscommon. So you were talking about a basketball court. We wouldn't want to build a basketball court indoors. We have that craft center facility downtown. You don't need to compete against it. It's regional. It covers, what you need to do is find things that complement what you already had. And, when we had the very first study done in downtown, Roscommon about what the needs were, and we had somebody came in with a fancy car and told us all the things, you need to have a Starbucks and you need to have a workout gym, a yoga center. And it wasn't practical. It wasn't, what you need to do is, Tom hit right in the head. We're a bedroom community, and what does the people primarily need? They need a doctor, they need an accountant, they need a lawyer. They're not building cars. They're not, we
Right.
do have an industrial park in Higgins Township, which is part of the village, but that industrial park is primarily undeveloped. There's a reason for that, because they thought the industries were too far removed. And, on the right, we have Lear there, and that's probably the biggest anchor in there. And we've had a few other ones come in. But if we're going to you focus on the recreation and the things that people are moving here because they want to retire or they want to enjoy themselves. They're not moving here to get a job at Lear. That's just there. Now Grayling's got some development over there. They got the new Saab plant coming in. There's some industry there, and the bedroom community fits right in. We need housing so that they can There's people that are coming in with, $100,000, $200,000 jobs and can't get a house. There's no place to buy. And Crawford County's working really hard on that. Roscommon's making an effort, but not near enough that they should to get ahead of. But I guess the bottom line is you want to make it friendly. I'm not sure how you do that, because if you loosen up the range, you're just going to draw in somebody in there. It's undesirable. There was a big fight over the fact that the dollar store came in and people tried to stop it, but they met every requirement to get here. They was all fair and square, and they came and moved in. The result of that is you got Nate down the street suffering for that because they're selling the same stuff he was. And when you get these box stores in, they tend to drive out the little, Roscommon, the village is focused on, you have to pump money in there to get something. You just don't say, please come. We've spent a lot of money through the TIFA program there in town to reinvest. We don't have that here, but we can try to target businesses that come in, but I think it's going to be a natural ebb and flow of how that works. And this township, when you look at the commercial property that you have in comparison to the total township, it's pretty minute, right?
Yeah.
So you've got a strip that you could work up, and your strip is kind of being utilized, but
The strip has shrunk
Yeah.
is what's happened. I mean, they used to be, because someone's got two places that, storage facility.
yeah, and
there's three storage facilities there now, and that's used to all be.
and they're full, right?
I don't know. Well, the one's just individuals. Two of them are just individuals. Property that were commercial, now they just have their individual
Yeah.
stuff there. I just don't think
I don't think it's not appealing as a person that's on a board like this, but you got to think about how do you address that? And if you want to get a business to come in, you're going to have to create some sort of financial incentives or go out and do some, shoulder rubbing at some venues where you can help show them what a great place you had. Mike mentioned something about professionals moving into the area, and that was something that we discussed and targeted, because if you've got good, strong infrastructural internet, you can work anywhere you want if that's what you do. And that's why a lot of people are in Florida after COVID, because they left New York and they moved down there. So it's something to think about. I don't know the answer, but I'm just saying that.
No, I understand what you're saying. I think I don't want to get into the debate of it now, but you look at that stretch, what if someone wanted to put a new market in there or wanted to put a coffee shop, there's no parking in there for any of those businesses to have kind of in and out people. The hardware store's tough enough. They have the side parking, but other than that, how would you get any business in that stretch? It'd be tough.
Talking to Southwest Corner.
Yeah.
Well, that area developed with basically minimal zoning input at the time. There just wasn't any.
Yeah.
If you wanted to put up a business, you put it up. And then, after 50 years, we've grown, and you're right, they don't have parking and stuff.
Yeah.
But
I don't have an answer to about
it's evolving. It gets bought up, it gets sold. Somebody comes with an idea, they tear it down. It's just one of those things. You can't,
Yeah. Consumer preferences shift too. I mean, it's in the course of the last 15 years, even since 2010, the predominance of like Costco's and Sam's Clubs have increased. And I don't have, a study in front of me to say that there's proof to the fact that people are shopping and coming up with what they need, and versus maybe they used to go to the market more. There is just a consumer preference shift too. So
well, there's another piece of this, and I won't say anymore, is that when more and more of these are becoming short-term rentals, the needs of the people change versus people who are here all the time.
Absolutely.
So
They're coming with a bag of groceries, boxes of stuff when they come in.
Yeah.
exactly.
You're right. But when for 30 some years, people would tell me, well, we need a a certain kind of store, maybe a donut shop in Roscommon. I always told them, I said, well, I could facilitate getting somebody in here. I'll help them. We'll find a way. But I'm not making the donuts. You got to find somebody that wants to be an entrepreneur
Right.
that is willing to come in and invest. And that's the tough part is
And that's, I mean, that's not just here and that's not just rural communities or lake community. I mean, I, I work in all sorts of communities where that's a problem and it's tough. It's a tough, problem to, finding those people who are interested and have the capital and the ability to really get off the ground, even with help. It's, a challenge.
There are a couple more things that
Yeah.
these are just of note to be aware of. The airspace from Grayling to Lake Huron and stuff here has been expanded, I believe, a fair amount, and they're expanding operations, and I think they have already to some extent with Camp Grayling with the exercises they do, and I think there's some of the low levels. So you may see more potential low level flights from jet aircraft and stuff coming around here, which will be a noise issue for some people and stuff. I came from that background, so to me it's exciting, but that's not something you want to hear all the time, and some of those things will encroach in those areas. And the other thing about the resources, the police chief at Brian Hill, who's a supervisor, he had mentioned that during the power outage in 2003 timeframe, there is essentially when the storms hit and the power outage downstate, where would everybody go? They went up north, and that was October. And on top of that, everybody come on up here. That was also past Labor Day, so the resources from the grocery stores and all that stuff and restaurants were at a winter rate. Anyways, in a day or two, it became a significant problem. And they found there was some major resource logistics things identified at the state that was north that has been supposedly corrected from Mount Pleasant north. But the point there is if there are events like COVID or other things that come up here, the current stuff, we've got the houses and facilities, but all the other infrastructure does not, would not support the people, for extended periods of time that would want to, maybe think they're going to come up here to get away from everything down there. I mean, those are just kind of things that you would maybe consider or note, not that you're going to have a resolved solution for.
Absolutely. Any other thoughts? Well, I really appreciate this conversation. We do have some next steps. You want to scroll a little bit further? We talked a little bit about this. I feel like, the future land use is fairly representative, and of course, we'll do our analysis and consider all of that with you. But this was a great starting point. As we mentioned, the community survey, I'll have a draft in October. We'll work with Mr. Anderson to get the tax bills hopefully worked out to include the survey there. And then I will ask, does this entire board want to see that draft survey prior to it being sent out? Or I welcome the opportunity to vet our questions and make sure we're asking the right things. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a special meeting. I'm happy to send it out and hear your thoughts via email, or we can have a meeting, but I just
think so.
are you okay with an email
Sure.
start? And then if
Yeah.
you feel like there's a need for a meeting, we can do that. Okay, great.
Who do you have that devises the questions, or are they all similar to ones that have been done in the past and more or less embedded?
On our team, Maya has a real passion for devising survey questions and really doesn't like standard survey questions. And has a real analytical thought process on what the results end up being in terms of
Questions all
shaping the questions, right? Exactly. And in an objective way that hopefully introduces as minimal amount of bias as possible into that.
Thank you.
I'll get into it. So yeah, our next main touch point will be the survey, and then we will work through our analysis and provide at least an update for your November meeting. I don't know that we will necessarily be in attendance, but if we have things to discuss, we will be here. And if not, we will definitely meet in January at your January meeting. Any questions about the process going forward?
You got any homework for us that you want us to do?
Uh,
You know, we've been talking about the goals.
right. I would say if you have additional thoughts about the goals, email me, and otherwise I will send out the survey, which was really our biggest next step, and we'll start doing the analysis. I think we'll have more homework for you over the winter once that analysis is in at least preliminary phase of being able to understand what has changed. To your point, Mr. Anderson, that shift, I think, will be one of the more illuminating pieces as well.
You need some paper signed too. Do you want that done tonight?
If you want, or you can email it to me, whatever works best for you.
Did you read that over? Is it?
It's
good
good.
with you? The supervisor looked it over and I didn't have a problem with it. It's consistent with what your proposal was.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we could do it tonight. Well, you gotta have it signed by John Jackson, is that right? So I guess.
I can either send you a signed copy with his signature. I can take it back and have him sign it and send you the final.
So you just need, looks like it says by on there twice, but you only need one signature on it?
Usually we have a witness is the second line.
Over here, but I
Yeah.
mean, under Gerrish.
No, just one is fine.
Cause I'm comfortable signing.
Yeah,
it,
that's great.
And Brian, Hill, the supervisor, read it over and he was fine with it
Great.
too. So you wanna be a witness?
Sure. Suck that.
Put your glasses on.
Elmer, but.
Sir, I'm gathering is, if we want to do anything, it'd be to go through the goals and objectives and all that are here. And make a note of anything you disagree with or isn't appropriate anymore, or any kind of change or anything you think you want to add to all of this.
Yes.
Or it's fine the way it is.
Yeah. That would be great.
I just want to make a comment that I think this is pretty impressive, what you've shown so far. From things I've seen beforehand.
Me?
Well, I just think, yeah. But no, I mean, your whole presentation, the package and what you're doing, your approach and all that kind of stuff. And I've seen stuff from government, contracts and other areas and stuff. And this is right up there with those.
Well, thank you so much. I get that. Really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's one of the things I noticed on some of the ones we were looking at is a lot of these. I don't get a lot out of it. It's a lot of fluff and stuff without much real meat and potatoes and so ours is all meat and potatoes.
It is.
There's no fluff. So maybe, I'm looking forward to see what your art person
Yeah.
gets into that.
Yeah, so art would be nice.
Yeah, it will still be meat and potatoes, but we have lots of pictures. There's lots of
Yeah.
nice things around here. So
Yeah.
yeah. Well, yeah, I'm excited for that as well. And thank you so much. So I'll hopefully hear from you about any ideas you have on the goals and objectives, and we'll be in touch before your next meeting with those survey questions. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody need a break or anything?
Yeah, Tom, do you want those if we had any comments, or do you want us to shoot them to you
5 minutes?
and have them consolidated, or? We probably should just go, I mean, I don't think we should all probably send stuff directly to her. We should probably go through one.
She said, send it to her.
Well, I mean, how would you like to do it?
She's still here.
But from a board standpoint, you want?
Doesn't matter to me. I mean, I don't
Okay.
need to be the gatekeeper or anything. If you want to send them to me, or
I'm not asking,
But
to
just set
do
up
that
the whole-
stuff or just. Yeah,
I don't
we-
know
we-
if the Meeting Act thing comes into this and all that stuff.
Well, this is just internal work. It's not
Yeah.
like that has to. It's not like a public document yet.
Right.
We're just,
Okay.
we're gathering information, so it's not.
Well, you might just send it to everybody,
Yeah.
including Jane.
Yeah.
They hear, they
Jane-
see all of us. Yeah,
And then
Yeah.
she'll do the compilation, you know,
right.
filing it all, I'm sure, but you might say something that makes him think of something and, you
Right.
know,
Right.
that's how it's supposed to work, I think. But good question.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Yeah.
You good?
That's-
Okay.
and-
Um, anything else
I don't know.
on this? No. Okay, short-term rental ordinance update. Jim, why don't you know more about where the process is at, since it's
Yeah,
in your ballpark.
so Brian, our Supervisor Hill, and myself met with our attorney, spent 2 weeks ago with that last draft that the township put their extra items on. He had reviewed it prior to that meeting, and so everything that we did is verbal. We're waiting on him to come back with his written changes. And so I had made some notes, but one of the ones that we pretty much all agreed that it's going to have to be stricken is the 1,000-foot rule that we had thrown in there. And part of the reason for that is that we're already, the township board is most likely going to use the threshold that Grand Traverse County had and MSU had come up with around a 2.5%. I guess I call it saturation of STRs within the available homes. So we have like I think 3390 in the of improved residential properties in the township. And so 2.5% of that comes out to about 85. I already know there's at least 100 of them out there that we identified. I suspect there's at least 30 more, and they're growing. So and I don't know how the township's going to do this. They may grant more than the 85 on licenses and then use attrition to get it down to the 85. So like, not necessarily turning everyone away. But that's to be determined. Yeah, so I can't tell you that that's what it is because I don't know. That's going to be a policy that the board's going to decide. But that 1,000-foot rule wouldn't play into this. If they're already there and you're going to give them a license, you can't really, you got them, they're already too close as it is. And in my being naive, when I put that in front of the board, didn't think about the fact that you get 50-foot lots. So it's 20 lots on the lake. So it's gonna, it's gonna be problematic. So that he suggested we take that out, but we kind of, and this is again just me talking because I can't say how the whole board is going to feel about this, but we are, I think, going to strive for that 2.5%. If we don't get it initially, that's what we're going to work down to. So if we go in excess of that, there'll be a moratorium on any new short-term rentals until we get it reduced down to that threshold. So he's going to get back any day now with his written changes to that last draft. Our board will meet hopefully in October at our work session, and we're going to start hashing that out again. The other thing I found out I didn't realize is under that police ordinance, we're not required to have a public hearing. But we all kind of feel like we should have one. So most likely, if the board can get through the revisions in October, we'll probably look at having a public hearing sometime after that. Then final, hopefully revisions after the hearing, if there's some enlightening, facts that come up. And then, if there's a rollout of this, it would probably be, would probably be enacted during the winter, and then, the window for starting, licensing would be probably April 1st. That's what we're talking about.
So is your concept to grant anyone who applies April 1st, whether or not they've had one before? I mean,
That's again, we've talked about a lottery. We've talked about, length of time they've been there. I had a suggestion that was put to me yesterday by a board member, said, could you give priority to people, those that live in the township versus those that don't? And I don't know how that's gonna, I'm one of 5. I don't know.
No, I know.
how that's
I just
gonna
put
go.
you. But I mean, there's different ways you could do that. I mean, because they're literally properties being sold right now with the plans of renting them. And I could even see people who think they might rent later who go in and put in for a
I'm getting
license now.
calls daily. Today I had a
Yeah.
30-minute conversation with a lady that has a bed and breakfast, and she is operating on a lake, and she's already having problems with her neighbors, and she doesn't understand why. And I try to explain their side of it. And she seemed like a very responsible person, and she's worried about what are we doing with these STRs. And I couldn't give her a definitive answer, but I said, you sound like you're responsible. You're probably going to meet the requirements, but I can't guarantee you're going to have a license. And she wants to know if she should be taking, reservation for next summer. I said, well, you could, with the caveat that you may have to give the money back.
Mhm.
Now, you said you live on Kennedy Trail, and that's a private road. Okay, so
There's multiple.
the way that is written, and I think it's going to hold true, is that those that are on private roads cannot have a license unless the neighbors contiguous to them approve it.
What are you gonna do?
If you're on a public road, you have to notify them, but if you're on a private road,
So you can tell people that have a business already established there,
they'll not get a license.
they'll not get a
I don't care if
license.
they're established or not. If they're on a private road and their neighbors don't approve it, I'm pretty sure the township's gonna hold true on that. You won't get a license.
One of the problems that I see is, I think from an attrition standpoint, I don't think that we're ever gonna get down to 85 unless there are some things, just like what you mentioned, that we can do so that they can't
There's a strong likelihood with the teeth that we added to that. Some people are gonna say, I don't want anything to do with this. And so they may just drop out of it. So some of the ones that are currently operating, either might not be able to, or they might say, I don't want to. Now, one of the things we did do specifically to a piece of property that's a non-conforming property that was here before you even had zoning, and they have cabins on the property. And that gentleman had talked to me a couple of times. He's been in the office, he's been in here and talked to this board and the township board. And after conversation with the attorney, we decided that it'd be probably best if that's the only one I know, but there might be other ones that you know about, Jason, but if they're non-conforming, were there before, the zoning, and they're operating as basically our commercial, they always have been, they're not going to be included in this. They're out, we're not going to make this apply to them. So the wording will change, because we already had in there about motor lodges and.
Well, basically what you're describing is the typical stereotype resort. They got little cabins that they rent. They live on the property, manage it. Typically, the owner does.
And they've been there.
Those are grandfathered in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. The neighbor really doesn't have, they've been there longer than neighbors. Neighbors bought in there and they were there. So you know, they're not the ones that
They're not the target.
we're, the ones that are really concerning are those that bought a piece of property in a residential area in the last, you know, several years with the purpose of creating a commercial activity within there. And so how this, you know, we're gonna make mistakes. I already know it. We're gonna, you know, but we're gonna do the best we can. According to Scott, the best that we trying to go through this on a zoning method is not going to work. And if you want to do something, we're going to have to go through the police ordinance. He's convinced of that. I'm starting to feel like he's probably right. The township would have to spend lots of money and probably lose the cases because I don't know how you can sue somebody for violating zoning ordinances that were mute on a thing and they've been operating for 5 years. And if we lose that case, the next person that comes along, just say, well, so the police ordinance makes sense. But, you know, you could go across the state and go across the country and it's a Wild West show. I mean, everybody's doing something different or they're arguing about it. So,
Well, a police ordinance is still basically a zoning ordinance. Okay, it deals with uses and so forth. The biggest difference is it's enforceable through police action. With a normal zoning, you don't call the police because they overbuilt too close to the property line. Okay, that's another whole department. So it's still a zoning ordinance, but it's a police.
as Brian's term is, under this, you can giveth and you can taketh away. So if you don't meet the criteria, we will, in my estimation, and I'm talking 1 out of 5, we will enforce it. And if we have to go to court, we will. Because we got to draw the line somewhere. And this is where it's going to be.
Were there other considerations for how attrition may be helped along? I mean, I know one of the things that Jim Osling said one day when we were talking was that there might be like a, you know, like a sunset for certain.
That concept has been brought up, and I'm not saying it's out, you know, been thrown out, but the concept of what you're talking about is basically saying the goal is 0, and we're going to give you all your license, but by 4 years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever, there will be no licenses. That'll basically.
Or for certain stipulations, it could be done, like the one that you mentioned earlier about how the people there could be a difference between people who are residents of the area or non-residents. So maybe there could be a stipulation that if you're a non-resident in 3 years, you can't continue to operate as a business.
All I can tell you is if you all have ideas, come to the meeting because.
Well, I just wondered if any others were discussed.
They were, yeah, they have been. And that's where some of the board might be split. Our board's always been a 5-0 board, but it may not be one on this vote. You know, when I got elected in, I knew the sewer was going to be a defining factor of my tenure here. I did not see this as ever being a defining factor of my tenure. But it is. Probably more so.
Should have talked to us. We've been working. We've been working on this for about 3 years.
You guys, I'm like, what is an SDR?
3 years ago was when this hit our plate.
Well, whatever you can do to start that, get it as low as possible as the starting number. You know what I mean? Whatever criteria set so that you can get to that 2.5%.
I think adding some of the language that we did, like can't be a venue. You know, and I just stayed at a place and they tell you that right flat out. And the lady I talked to today, same thing. She said, I allow 1 guest per people that are here. And then at, 10 o'clock, they have to leave. I said, well, that's exactly what our ordinance is worded as. You know, I think ours is 11, but it's identical. I said, you're following exactly what our ordinance is as it's written. But if you're going to have a wedding there or, that's not going to fly. So anyways, that's where we're at. And,
well, thanks.
It's not over.
Okay. So if we come up with anything individually, just get it to you and.
Yes, that would, if you could give it to me and then even show up still at the work session, that'd be good. But giving it to me in advance gives everybody an opportunity to think about it.
Look at it. Okay.
When's that work session? You said.
We always meet the first Thursday of the month.
Yeah, we're already into October's your next one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's assuming Scott, this is our ordinance.
Anybody got anything else on this topic? Are we good for now? Good. The other thing I had on the agenda was the septic system ordinance, which is, health of Hagen's Lake. I attended one meeting of the committee that's looking at the septic and wells systems, and they met with two people from the Central Michigan Health Department, was at the meeting and taking questions and giving answers and so forth. And it was a good meeting. It was a good meeting. I don't know if they've had any since then, or I just lost track of what was what.
Our next one, we're gonna meet with prior inspectors.
Yeah, you haven't had that yet.
No, I thought it was gonna be this last one, but it's the next one. Sargents and Scotts are both gonna be at you're on the same committee, right? I thought you were, no, you're not, that's right. Anyways, I guess I'm the only one here. That was a good meeting, and the one good thing that came out of that, the lady that was there, she's the head of the she's head of the Central Michigan Health.
She took over for Steve King.
And she offered to meet with us to help us write an ordinance. So the septic committee's they're starting to get kind of antsy about wanting an ordinance, and they wanted to start drafting it. And I reminded them that that's not their job. I said, you need to work on the attributes of what you'd like to. I said, you need to feed that up to the steering committee. The steering committee then mulls it over, feeds it makes a request to the township board, and the township board's going to then make the request to us. I said, once that's done, you can then cut across and say whatever you want to the planning commission, but the planning commission sitting here waiting for directions on what the flavor of the month is. And so they're going to start writing attributes. They're doing it right now. The last meeting, they said, let's start compiling whether it's point of sale or whatever, and get a feel. But, and they may even do a general draft of that thing, but I reminded, that's not their job. That's not how this works.
They're 2 levels down.
Yeah. I told them, this is the whole idea is that right there is only an advisory board, or not even that, it's informational to go to the steering committee is the only one that truly has the ear to the township board to make a request, not that. So the guy said, just keep in mind where your place is. Got to get it all, I respect all their opinions and everything, but they got to follow the protocol. So, but we are meeting with the inspectors to get their insight as to what the problems were with the successes or whatever when they were doing the inspections under Lyon when they had their ordinance. So it'll be interesting to see what they have to say, contrary to what the health department said. But the one thing that I really enjoyed, and I heard her say it, I talked to her later in the day, she will come and help us put our ordinance together.
It would behoove her to, because she's going to have to work it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there any discussion that something we discussed here a month ago or 2 months ago was maybe phasing in the ordinance, like let's do inspections first to find out what we have versus writing the whole ordinance up front?
That's been discussed. It's been, and Jim Osling was very vocal about that. But I think the reality is that voluntary inspections is probably not likely to have much come out of it. Because,
About inspections for people who have no records in health.
Yeah.
well, that's the other thing. There's, she said it, I think there's like 20% that they don't have record.
There's a lot.
Yeah, so they're working on that GIS fetch system for the health department, and it's just slow going. I don't know if you heard what they were saying during that meeting, but these people are volunteering and working on it. They're working really hard. They can get 30 on a day. You know, and there's
Well, and they had some money, the health department had some money to hire some other people for that project.
Yeah.
It's about to run out of, that the fiscal year is ending and
well,
not gonna have
what they're all they're doing really is they're not vetting this information other
No.
than they're looking at this. You might have a drawing on yours, and there might be a permit, and there might be a couple other things that they had correspondence, and they're just putting it together and putting it so when you click on that, you'll see what there is there. But some of them may not have much to it, and so it's surprising. But at any rate, they're working on that. But I think that the conclusion, at least on that committee, is that most likely a voluntary inspection probably won't fly. It probably won't generate much information. So, not to say they won't do it, but I think the conclusion they're coming to is that, hey, we need to get all this information together. We need to get the attributes or a rough draft of an ordinance and get it moving through. So then it'll be I don't know, who's on the steering committee in here? For nobody?
Nobody.
No.
It's going to go to that steering committee, and then they'll decide. And maybe the science committee might have thoughts on that too, but the steering committee is the one that is the public entity like we are, that then will advise the township board as to what their wants.
And that's going through some changes too, because the chair resigned. The
Right.
steering committee.
Jim Oslin's on both of those. So
Right.
he has good knowledge just because he sits on the septic and he's the chair of the steering committee now. So, but I think they're moving along. I think everything's starting to get traction on this Health of Higgins Lake. I can see it. It's like you guys are just finally getting all that information so you can start now really go and get it when you want it.
Right.
And so when I talk to each of these different committees, I just feel like they're starting to feel like we're getting somewhere. Like we almost got the machine built. Now we can start, really making it work.
Mm-hmm.
So the bottom line is that we're not going to generate anything until we hear from them. Is that right?
Yes.
Is there a timeline that you guys are working on? Like,
They don't, to my knowledge, there's not like a drop dead date. I think they are starting this now that they're starting to get all this information together. They're ready to start making some recommendations. I think that's why they're getting antsy. They're ready. And so I expect it might take a month or two, but once it comes around through the township board and they give us this direction, then I told them, I said, any of you can come to a meeting and tell us what your thoughts are. And even the committee could say something, but you can't until they can't give us direction, and they shouldn't be writing an ordinance till that's this board's job, not that board's job.
When is that next meeting? Do you know?
I think it's next week.
Steering committee, that's next week, right?
No, I'm talking about this septic.
I think it's next week. I'm pretty sure it is.
Some of these committees are
Website.
much more efficient. I mean, they have, how many people do you have on a septic committee?
There's just expanded. There's gonna be 8, 10.
Okay, yeah.
something like that.
Most are 6, 8, 10. We have 24, Mike, on ours, so it's a little more cumbersome to try to, some herding cats for sure. A little slower, but anyway, thanks.
New business. Jason, did you have something you wanted to add, or are you just listening in?
So, Brian asked me to just kind of put a list together, and this was just a few days ago, so I haven't done a whole lot of research or anything on it, but he asked me to put a list together of any of the zoning ordinances that were cumbersome to me, maybe difficult to enforce, maybe anything that might be looked at for potential amendment or changes, that kind of thing. So did you email everybody?
No, actually, I sent it to Tom.
Okay.
I don't think you went any further.
It's
No,
not,
I didn't.
not a big list. And at this point, I guess my thoughts would be to just we'll make sure everyone gets a copy, and at the next meeting we could talk about it a little bit more in depth. And
I didn't think it was like, like something that had to be dealt with immediately.
no, absolutely
Talking
not.
to Brian, so that's why I left it to Tom's discretion. He probably is aware of some of those things, so
And some
put
of
it on the agenda as he feels.
and some of them are things we've talked about in the past. The sign ordinance, the shoreline. I actually went to Scott Hess a year or two ago about we have issues in the winter. You get people to have ice damage, and there should be a caveat in there where those people should be able to at least repair. Bring some sand back in if sand gets shoved all over, that kind of thing. The fence ordinance, I think, needs some tweaking, and we've tried to attack that before, and it ended up getting more complicated than when we began. So I just left it alone.
I still got the file.
Yeah, I think we can simplify it. Just the main thing is it says fences that block more than 30% of the view. That number has to go away. It needs to be 50%. Nobody has any idea how to figure out what 30% of a fence is.
You're talking about error view.
Both. It says 30% of the air and
Yeah.
flow and view.
Depends on how short you are.
Nobody understands it that's putting a fence in. So I've read multiple other townships in the surrounding area. They're all 50%. I think that would make things a lot simpler. And then some other issues with the privacy fencing. I think we could simplify and shorten and make it more understandable. So next meeting, we can go more into depth on my issues with them all. But I'd like all of you to read these sections. And when you read it, pretend you're the one enforcing that ordinance. How are you going to enforce this? And does it make sense? And can you explain it to somebody else? That's the way I and then if you guys all know, these seem fine, then I'm fine. I've been doing it for 11 years the way it is, but I think we can make it simpler and easier and better.
Well, if you could, under each one of those items, just state your frustration, what it is, or, like you just said,
Yeah.
determining the fence flow or not, that type of thing. And
Sure.
just to give us an idea of what you're concerned with. You don't have to give us an answer or anything. Just tell me
Right.
what the problem is or the thing that you would like to.
Right.
to
And I think I did
really
that
look
on, I did that on most of them, but I'll make sure I do that on all of them.
But an answer would be helpful, I think, too, though. If you have an answer that makes
Yeah.
sense.
A recommendation.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the 50% makes total sense. right?
Yeah, 30%, I don't know where that came from. And
33% maybe.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, there's some issues with the privacy fence locations that I think can be easily stated, like they're not allowed in a front yard, period. Simple, everybody gets it. Right now, I think you can put one in the front yard as long as you meet the setback requirements. So I think it probably should say we don't want privacy fences in the front yard, especially on the lakefront. So,
But then the problem.
But that's the backyard.
Vegetation.
Some,
They could put any kind of vegetation in there where they would put a fence, and we have nothing for that.
no, and I do not want anything like that. And I tell people, plant some shrubs because you can't have a fence. The other one that I would like to have you look at is the light. There's a lighting ordinance under the environmental section. In platted subdivisions, you can't have a light over 6 foot. Whoever wrote that, I'm befuddled by how you're supposed to enforce that one. I have to be there at night and have some kind of device that measures candle foot power, and so I don't know if we could do something different with that one, but I understand the reason for it.
there are some issues. Yeah.
Probably
Yeah.
the reason for that is probably the big sodium lights that are on all night. Okay, but I think I've had maybe 3 complaints in 11 years about lights that are, on a newer home. And it's probably because they left them on all night, kind of a thing. But once, even if the light doesn't meet the ordinance, it's probably not an issue 99.9% of the time because they flip it on to unload something and then it's off. But I get it. The sodium lights.
All right.
There's, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, other than that, I'll just get you a copy of this and kind of describe the issue, and if there is an answer that I could see we could look at, I'll write that.
That's what, yeah.
Otherwise, just kind of go through those sections and give me your thoughts on them.
We put together lists that we are compiling and kind of go along, and we're going to do, when we got enough of them, we're going to put them up. Did we ever? I've forgotten that now because we got wrapped up in so many other things over the years. Are there still a bunch of those things that we acted on?
I think
that we didn't go before like a public hearing that are already, and I think some of those.
I think all of them are still in this section. So
yeah, and I can't remember. So
fences? I know are one, the shoreline protection one where you can make a repair.
Right, and some of those we said yes, and some we said no, but we're going to wait to get in. I can't remember. I have to go back and look at the minutes.
I think those are the 2 that I remember that we were going to act on at some point, but the fences got out of hand, so I just left that one alone. But I think we can make some simple adjustments to the fence ordinance to simplify it. People can understand it, and it just makes more sense.
Send us your list.
Okay.
Send it to me if you want.
Okay.
And I've got the piece Mike's talking about. Most of you were on the board when we looked at that stuff before.
Yeah.
And we kind of just tabled it under your direction.
Yep.
And but I got notes and stuff that I'll go through it and I'll forward it to you guys. If you don't have it, you'll have a copy of it. You can look in your old records, but like you say, we'll go from there.
Sounds great. That's all I have.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
You got anything else to add, Jim, going on with the township other than the short-term rental?
Really, I did get an email. There is somebody that's been putting septic systems without a license and improper. And we were contacted by the health department. They're trying to track the guy down and shut
Really?
it down. But we know of one that was just put in. We know the address. You know what I'm talking about, right? You got that email.
Yeah, but I think it's not ours.
I wasn't gonna say where it was, but yeah. So anyways, they're looking for the guy, the
Really?
cease and desist. Yeah. Did you want to mention anything about the question you had to the board about the upcoming educational stuff?
Oh, yeah. You got that flyer, that mailing piece that you got in the mail. The MTA, Michigan Township Association, is having their, I guess, fall. Yeah, that.
I got a copy of it too. We've seen that.
they call them the retreat. It's a 2-day retreat. And they've got different sections set up for different level or areas of government, and one of those planning commissions. And they got 8 different subjects they're going to speak about. And I asked the board if they would fund us if we wanted to go to it, if any of us wanted to go to it. One's legislative news you need to know. This is talking about more about the bills that are introduced in session, at the government level, and how they affect local control, that type of thing. Another one is clarifying the roles, following the rules, a blueprint for effective zoning, teamwork, and transparent public process. Session transforms confusing judicial tangles into a well-oiled municipal machine, clearly defining who does what, when, and how. So they're looking at teamwork between planning commission, zoning administrator, zoning board of appeals, and zoning township board. Just how they can all integrate, work smoothly together. Then I got another one. It's all about the master plan, or is it? It's learn how to harness the powers of public engagement and navigate the legal requirements to create a master plan. Zoning on the hot topics, short-term rentals, planning issues. These are all fairly short sessions, so I'm assuming they're not going to get into it real deep. You're looking at probably an hour and a half, 2 hours max on these topics. So I think it's going to be fast and furious. They have what works for you in renewable energy ordinances that fit. Some of you went to that.
Yeah, you're the only one that did.
Yeah.
We've all, and the thing I noticed about that is very general topics, but we went through on those other ones, we're very, very detailed.
In-depth. That's what I'm saying. These will not be that.
I
don't know how
think
much
I'm gonna
benefit
be
you'll get.
interested going to that, but
then I got the power possibility, flexing your zoning ordinance. A well-crafted zoning ordinance doesn't need constant amendments. It needs built-in flexibility. And I think our ordinance, I think it's pretty damn good myself. I mean,
Maybe Jane
for the
wants,
mess we got.
maybe Jane wants to go.
The other one was special request, making sense of special land uses. Conditional or special land uses, common feature of every zoning ordinance. But getting from the application to approval can be anything but easy. So they're going to discuss the legal foundation for conditional land uses and value and so forth. And the last one was next level zoning, navigating complicated projects. Deep dive into complex land uses that turn controversial or their impact on adjacent properties, like gravel mining operations, mixed-use developments, agritourism, so determine how to work around those issues. So it's October 29th and October 30th. That's a Wednesday and a Thursday. I was thinking of going. I haven't made up my mind 100%. If I go, I wouldn't spend the night. You can. It's at Frankenmuth at the Barbarian Inn down there. If you ever been there, it's a nice place. And they got pretty good room rate. Man, I guess $367 a person. That includes dinner and a riverboat cruise. So if you're interested, I can send you information that I picked up off the internet, or for some reason you got your own personal flyer.
Yeah, because I've attended these things before.
Oh, that's
Probably
they
gave
get
up my address. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Actually, I always thought that these things were pretty well run, and the person who
They
runs
are.
it, that Catherine, what is that her name? Anyway, she does a good job. But I'm not going to be here at that time. I'd go if I was.
Anyway, think about it. I think there's a registration by October 7th. There's if you don't spend the night, I think it's what they say, 167 or something like that.
Something.
Anyway, like I said, township board said pick it up. So if I did go, I was gonna drive, and if somebody wants to ride with me.
Well, a single day rate, early bird is 230, regular is 280. If it's 3 weeks before, within 3 weeks before.
Okay, it was two something. Okay, our next regular meeting is November 13th. Anything else to come before the commission?
Yes, we just had our 11th ZBA this past Monday. A lot of the same stuff.
Lucky to be you.
Minutes, meetings, and meetings more the same.
We keep having to amend the budget for you guys. We keep spending more than.
The question I had said, when do you depart for Florida? You're out of here, so
I
you're not
think
gonna
I'm
be here
leaving
next
on
week.
October 18th or on or about.
Okay, so you won't be here for the November one.
I wouldn't.
I will be. I won't leave until the end of November. And that's the only thing you guys have got to really consider. So me and Greg are both gone. We can't vote over Zoom. So
Gotta make sure we got a forum.
Yeah, you have to have more
Yeah,
people
yeah.
at least, yeah.
much as possible. Jane said she was okay with Zoom. Participate and stuff. So I think we got a good system here. So, and we got good technicians. So. Did you want to say anything? No? Okay. Motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So be it.